For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon de Rehove. Stand-up economist Kevin Lings joins me to discuss his book, The Missing Piece, which seeks to solve South Africa's economic puzzle. You speak about 4 pieces to South Africa's economic puzzle. Can you briefly explain what these puzzle pieces are and which you feel are already in place?
The argument in the book is that in 1994, South Africa had to get 4 elements of the economy right in order to achieve a reasonable economic success. And those 4 pieces, I think we've got 3 of them right, and unfortunately I think one of them we kind of messed up. So if you look at it, we needed to internationalize the economy. Back in '94, South Africa had sanctions. We were cut off from the world. We couldn't even participate in Olympic Games, sporting events. We had no access to international finance. We didn't even have an international credit rating. So South Africa had to reintegrate itself into the world. It had to establish trade links. It had to get a credit rating. It had to establish global finance. And I think on balance we did that exceptionally well. And it's hard to argue that we could have done it better. We're part of G20, we're part of the BRICS. The second element was that we had to get government finances and what we call monetary policy, inflation and interest rates, more under control. If we look at government finances in the late 80s, early 90s, it was getting out of control. The National Party was in essence managing government finances. So we needed to bring that lower. We had to get debt levels under control. We had to get the budget deficit better managed. I think Trevor Manuel did a brilliant job in doing just that. If you look at the 80s, inflation was 15%, interest rates were 18%. We needed to get that lower. Ultimately, we introduced the inflation target. We got inflation down to single digits. We got interest rates down to single digits. So I think we did very well in achieving what we would call fiscal and monetary discipline. The third element we had to address were all the socio-economic backlogs. So when the ANC took over in '94, they looked around, houses didn't have electricity, water supply, people weren't going to school. There were a whole lot of social neglects, if you like. And so government had to embark on fairly ambitious programs to try and remedy that. And if you look at the numbers, I think we did okay. We wasted a lot of money, and certainly the rollout of AIDS, ARV was not good. But in other key areas, the provision of electricity, we electrified 25,000 houses a month for 20 years, provision of running water, access to schooling, reducing malnutrition. I think we did actually quite well relative to the scope and the size of the problem to start with. The fourth element, which is the part that I think South Africa's neglected, is that we had to support business. In other words, in order for the economy to be vibrant, in order to create jobs, you've got to support the main engine of growth in the country. Business is the one that grows, business is the one that employs, business pays taxes. And I think that if I look at the factors that business need, we've neglected that. Skills has been neglected, business needs skills, infrastructure, energy, railway, port capacity. I think we've allowed those to age, we haven't maintained that. Regulation has become onerous, the ease of doing business has become complicated. So I think we've put many obstacles in place for business. Business confidence over time has waned, business has been reluctant to invest, and as a consequence of that, the economy has tended to stagnate. So to me, the missing piece is that we haven't supported business nearly enough.
You argue that business sector growth is the main missing piece, as you've said. Why has progress been lacking in this area, and what are the implications for growth and development?
If you look at a business needs a couple of things in order to be reasonably vibrant, and obviously it doesn't need to have all of those elements at a world-class standard, but it needs it to be sufficiently in place in order to not be a hindrance. Now, if we go through those components, in my mind, South Africa hasn't developed the skills base that we need. If we look at university training, it hasn't been up to the right sort of standard in terms of the array of skills and the standard of skill. If we look at artisan training, if we look at the array of vocational courses offered, I don't think we've done enough to match the skills to what business really requires. You can argue that business itself is responsible for training, and I think that's a fair argument, but ultimately it's not business's primary responsibility. That is the primary responsibility of the education system, and I think skills continue to be a major obstacle. The second big obstacle is obviously the infrastructure. Business will struggle to expand if there's no electricity. Business will struggle to export if there isn't rail and port capacity. Business will struggle if there isn't simple things like water, etc. So I think that by allowing the infrastructure to age, we've put many obstacles in businesses' way, and ultimately the infrastructure has become very expensive when it has operated, which makes business somewhat uncompetitive. And then the third element relates to regulation. South Africa is the 64th most difficult place to start a business, yet we want new businesses. We need small business, we need startup business. Access to finance for small business is not as easy as it really should be. So I think that as I go through it step by step, I think that the business community finds that it's difficult to operate. Now, not all of the blame sits on government. You can't simply say that government's responsible for everything. I think business themselves are not taking enough initiative to try and overcome the obstacles and to try and be innovative and dynamic. I think business has got comfortable, adopts a business as usual approach, makes very good margins, stunning earnings, but needs to be much more innovative, undertake much more research and development, and to find ways to become internationally competitive. I think it's too easy to blame the government or other participants.
Your book also speaks about a negative feedback loop. Can you elaborate on how this is constraining the environment?
So the problem in South Africa is that having got three of the puzzle pieces right and you're missing the fourth element, which is the support of business, that negative aspect starts to have an impact on the elements that we've done right. In other words, as you neglect business community and you're not growing the economy, you're not adding jobs, the unemployment rate rises. Once the unemployment rate rises, you start to create social tension and you start to put more and more strain back on government. Once you do that, government's finances then deteriorate. Once finances deteriorate, you get an international credit rating downgrade. Once you do that, your currency is under pressure. Once your currency is under pressure, your inflation rises. So the economy is very interlinked. And if you are neglecting a key component of how you operate the economy, it will have consequences for other elements. Elements that you took for granted, that you thought, oh, this was well under control. If we go back to 2008 in South Africa, we assumed that government finances were well at hand, that government finances were well managed, that our international credit rating was secure. 5 years later, we've had a credit rating downgrade. Our government finances have deteriorated. A lot of that has to do with the social tension we've created, the lack of employment growth. So it all feeds back on one another.
Then there is the ever-present threat of corruption. What effect is this having?
So corruption in South Africa has become quite substantial. Over the years, they survey how corrupt countries are, and systematically our corruption index has risen. In other words, we've been seen internationally as more and more corrupt. We rank 72nd in the world, which is not 72nd, is not good. So when you look at the negative effect of corruption, what it tends to do is it tends to obviously take resources away from valuable enterprises or initiatives. So let's say that we want to undertake infrastructure development. It adds enormously to the cost for a start. The second thing it does is it tends to put off business from doing business. In other words, if you know that a system is relatively corrupt, you know that you're going to have to pay a layer of cost in order to undertake this. And so what business then does is looks for other projects where that element of corruption is not present. And so it tends to chase business away from potentially corrupt into dealing with other entities that are not corrupt. And in South Africa, that means moving abroad, investing into overseas markets, or simply not investing at all. So I think what it's done is it's added a layer of cost. It adds to the inefficiency, but more importantly, it discourages investment from happening in the first place, because you know that this is what's facing you if you want to get the business.
What are some of the microeconomic components that could help catalyze and accelerate progress?
If you look at South Africa in the book, what we're saying is that there are some things that we can do in the short term to try and encourage the economy, and some things realistically is going to take a little bit longer to achieve. If we look at some of the short-term initiatives, I think we can do a lot more at a micro level to help small business. We can certainly promote access to finance. We can certainly encourage the development of small business through various developmental initiatives, encourage big business to help small business themselves, but all business benefits from an increase in business activity. So I think there's quite a lot we can do in terms of small business and make it much more an acceptable route to go. In other words, in South Africa, there's too much of a I have to work for a corporate, I have to be employed by a big organization to be successful. We're not promoting enough the culture of being self-sufficient and of doing something yourself. So I think there's a lot we can do there. The second, which I think we got some easy wins, is technology. If we look at countries that have widespread internet and have accelerated the use and the speed of internet, they find that their growth rate is a lot better. In other words, if you think about how many businesses now use the internet to promote their services, to market, to even sell goods and services, South Africa ranks as the 120th fastest internet in the world. We're not even in the top 25 in Africa. We've neglected the development of that technology alone. And I think to roll out that technology on a better increased basis, lower cost, is very achievable, and I think we'll find that there's significant gains. The third initiative at a micro level is what I call ready-to-go projects. In other words, small-scale infrastructure projects that don't require huge budgets, that don't require months and months of planning, projects we can implement at a municipal level relatively quickly, and maybe literally employ 2 or 3 people, but if we do this countrywide, we can start to make a difference. So an example would be simply cleaning up a street, litter, simply improving stormwater drainage, signage in roads, road repair. All of that are initiatives which we can roll out quite quickly, and if we do it in a coordinated way, in a very visible way, it lifts confidence and it ultimately boosts the economy. Then we've got to recognize there's some long-term initiatives. Obviously, we've got to develop a better skills base, and realistically, to meaningfully change your education system, pretty much going to take 5 to 8 years. But you've got to embark on that, and I think our education system needs revamping. We need much broader infrastructure in South Africa. We've neglected a lot of our infrastructure. Many of the infrastructure projects take years to complete. But I think as you start some of the short-term initiatives and you lift confidence, people grow in their acceptance that the longer-term projects will materialize, and hopefully that then unlocks private business. Ultimately, what you need is for private sector business, which sits on good balance sheets, is on the whole fairly well managed. You need private business to invest and expand and employ in South Africa. At the moment, private business, while they're in good shape, have good balance sheets, they are generally reluctant to expand. And I think we've got to do everything we can to encourage that. Business on its own isn't going to wake up tomorrow and simply invest. There's got to be initiatives in place to encourage it.
Now, finally, what role could the National Development Plan play in consolidating the gains of the past 20 years and addressing the missing pieces in the economic puzzle?
So if you look at the National Development Plan, obviously it took a number of years to roll out under Trevor Manuel. It's changed a little bit since then, and it's now in a format that I think is more digestible, more manageable, and really it's becoming a more near-term plan, a 5-year. So there are initiatives that have been outlined for the next 5 years, and I think that's good. The objectives of the plan, I think, are a little bit ambitious, but perhaps there's nothing wrong with that. What worries me more is that when you look at the breakdown of the National Development Plan, there are 14 major objectives. And from my perspective, that's way too many. You can't focus on 14 objectives and get a sense that you're going to be able to focus equally on those and achieve. And I think what we need to do is maybe narrow those down to really 3 critical things. 1 is the infrastructure, 2 is the skills, and 3rd is the efficiency of government services. Now, all of those initiatives are contained in the National Development Plan together with a whole range of other initiatives. And I think it would be prudent if government were able to identify literally 2 or 3, highlight those, and try and get initiatives in place to implement it. The plan itself, I think, is fairly comprehensive. The measures talked about, I think, are reasonable. And I think on the whole, if the National Development Plan were to be implemented, it would take South Africa to a higher growth rate, and it would change many of the components that we're concerned about. But it's always been a question of implementation. We've had plans before, we've struggled to implement them. I think in order to get around the implementation issue, the best way is to reduce the number of objectives. And even if you come up literally with one objective and you implement that one objective, you'll make a significant difference. So I think the National Development Plan is positive. It can help to eliminate the missing piece, if you like, but I think the key is implementation. And so far, all we've got is the plan, and I think we're a little bit light on the implementation. Some we've started. Transnet, I'm encouraged by their infrastructure development, but we need much broader than that.